Wow.
So this is weird, right, Evan?
It's weird.
Yes. Just the two of us.
I could actually say right now because it's just me and you.
It is, and
I
it's
feel
not,
a little hesitant, but I'm going to say it. There will be no after show today because I got to leave at 6.
Well, this is the after show. We're having it before. It's like having dessert
before show.
A before show.
It is the before show until somebody else shows up.
That's right. Hi, how are you all doing?
Evan gave me a wonderful surprise today. Evan called me just to say, Michael.
I had this 10-minute window in my workday. My workday is packed. I usually have no time, but my call ended 10 minutes early. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with myself? I picked up the phone, I called Jay, and I made that noise, which is an inside joke. It's a throwback to the days when Mike Lascelles was helping us with SGU projects and stuff. And it originates to a game we would play. I think we were playing World of Warcraft with him.
Oh, it was World of Warcraft.
It was World of Warcraft.
What?
Mikhail or something. Mikhail. So Jay and I would, lovingly tease him about that name by making that noise, but it would crack him up every time.
Every time. I know.
And Mike Lascelles had such a great laugh. It was just this chortle almost, it was unique. And we got the biggest kick out of it. So we wanted to hear it all the time. So we would constantly throw that at him and he would give us the laugh back. It's just this big, crazy feedback loop, but we had a great time with it. So I called Jay just to say that.
One of the 300 things that we say by habit, for whatever reason,
That's right. The inside baseball stuff they say, you have with your friends as you've grown up your life with your friends or your brothers, your family and stuff. You say stupid little things that nobody else knows what the heck you're talking about, except those people in that very tight circle. So it's one of those things.
I love that stuff. That's the best stuff.
It is. It's it's fun. It's charming. It's gosh, but we have so many of them.
I know, but you couldn't. If we sat down and tried to write them down, we couldn't because they have to happen. There has to be like a trigger.
Yes, and some are more appropriate perhaps than others. So maybe you wouldn't want to write down one or two of them.
We would be boring if we didn't have ones that we couldn't say on the air, right?
That's right. Yes, of course. We live, we have our private moments too, like most people do.
Evan, here in the United States, when is tax day? How long do I have now?
Well, April 15th is normally your final day to file and pay any taxes you owe. But this year it's April 18th. And the reason it's the 18th is because Good Friday is April 15th this year, and government shutdown. No government April 15th. So therefore, the tax law says it's 15th or the next business day, basically. So it's
Okay.
going to be that Monday, the 18th. So you get a couple extra days to do your filing.
Well, I'm just starting now, so I hope I can finish. I have time.
Yeah, you got
It
time.
won't take me long.
You got time. Lots of time. So,
Bob and George are trying to connect as we speak.
They are. We do have our guest connected.
Oh,
Well, let's bring our guest in because
yeah, let's. We need more.
And here we go, Paolo.
Hello.
Hola.
Hello.
How's it
So
going?
first, I'd like to ask you a few personal questions. Okay,
Absolutely.
We're gonna get off to a rough start here. Are you wearing
Start with the
pants?
name. Start with the name.
Am I wearing pants? Yes, I am.
Okay, good.
Both the American English and the British English one.
So introduce yourself to the audience if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So I'm Paolo. I'm shared on the Discord for those who are on the Discord. I've been a listener since, I guess, 2015. Late summer 2015, I think, something like that. And a patron since beginning of 2019.
Thank you for that.
I am connecting from Scotland. I live just outside Edinburgh.
Love Edinburgh.
So I saw you guys when you came back in, was it October
2018?
2018? Yeah, October 2018.
You could have just said pre-pandemic. That would have worked because that's kind of how that's like in Star Wars. It's before the battle or the
Battle of Yavin. Yeah, kind of.
Did you come see us with Richard Wiseman at what was it, the Frankenstein pub? Is that
Frankenstein in the basement? Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
That was great.
So the book there, that's the one that you guys signed.
Yes,
George's signature too, because he was there too. So
sorry about that.
That's fine. That's fine.
He snuck in there, and
with Kara singing as well.
Yes, that was Kara's. Wow, and according to her, that was the first time she had sung sort of in any sort of public place in 20 years, something along those lines. So it was a very, very special, memorable evening. I remember it well.
I remember Richard Wiseman making us laugh for 2 hours.
Oh,
that's my memory of that night.
When doesn't he make us laugh?
Yeah, he was very funny. Sure.
So what do you do in the real world?
The real world, I am a software developer, mainly web stuff. Make stuff for various companies. We're a two-person band going on for a bunch of years, and just build.
You program in Node JavaScript?
A bit, yeah. It's not my main bag, but I do some stuff. I think I know where this is going because I think I saw some
you saw a post
doing the rounds somewhere.
We're working with somebody. Actually.
We're hunting.
We're working with. Well, we got somebody. We're working with somebody, so it's all good. Thank you.
We're just messing with you.
Yeah.
Hence the downplaying of the skills.
Yeah. Well, I'm not that good, and I'm not working for free. Get out of here.
Well, that's the number one thing. Yeah, I don't work for free, and also it's after 5 o'clock for me. It's
definitely.
I'm off the clock.
But to be fair, like the project we're doing it for isn't earning money right now, and we fully plan to expand this little piece of software into something much bigger. And I absolutely pay people that do work for us. Right, Ian?
Oh yes, totally.
No, but
legally, I have to say that. Yeah.
I would never ask you to work for free. But the cool thing is that Ian and I have been working on the live in-person version of our game show, and we finished it, and I packed it, and so it's packed for a gig that we have at the end of April in Bethlehem, PA. And then we realized that we wanted the audience interaction component to be there.
All right.
Yeah. So but for a live setting, we needed some custom software, but it's cool. We're having a lot of fun with it, but it's been a long road to get that thing on.
Speaking of which, tickets are available on the website if you head over to the events page.
On what website?
It was theskepticsguide.org. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, some people are saying I'm in a different location. I'm not in a different location. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's just a background.
But
it's been an illusion for the last 2 years. So.
I do have this though.
Hold the phone now.
It's
Oh my
plastic.
gosh.
It's
Ah,
plastic. It looks good though. Pretty cool.
it does look pretty good.
I am actually in one of my friend's kids' bedrooms right now.
Okay.
Evan, you could probably guess which friend it is just by the samurai sword.
I think so. Yes.
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 All right, Paolo. Let's get back to Paolo because I know nothing about
Okay.
this man. I know that you
Well,
you
it's from
code,
Edinburgh. Yep.
and you said you have one other person in your company. What kind of work are you doing right now?
We're helping to digitize a company that does it's a garage for boats. Basically, they repair boats for mainly fishermen, but also lifeboats and other things like that. And they started building boats now. So until recently, they were all like paper based. Literally, all their work, their orders, tracking, employee time, and everything was completely
Analog. Yeah.
analog. Not even pen. I think it was mainly pencil too. That's how extremely
Got that
analog.
pencil. Got erase.
Some whiteboards. But yeah,
your
we're
software keeps
digitizing
track
the
of what?
whole thing for them. Sorry, what was that?
Your software keeps track of the appointments, repair appointments, and all that, or like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So they can book in jobs and manage all their customer relationship stuff, and slowly expanding and more, and like people to log their time. All the guys who work on the boats, the different departments, welding or painting, and one of the bonuses you learn about the different businesses and how they work. I didn't know anything about boats or fishing and the industry, so you just have to learn the industry. You have to do interviews with all the guys who work there to understand how they work and how they would adapt to being digitized, because some of them may be like in their 50s and 60s and been working in that kind of industry for years and not used to.
Very stern business. Very stern.
Yeah, and asking them like even silly questions like, "Do you have a smartphone?" Like one of them didn't. So there you go. So
I've been in that situation many times. I used to co-own a software company in the 90s, and exact situation. Like, there's no possible way that you could know the inner details of some rando business that wants you to make them a website or build some functionality. So I've done that. I know exactly the position you're in.
Speaking of boomers, look who we have.
Oh my God.
Hey.
Holy crap.
Wow.
Steve,
Hey,
you
Bob.
made
you
it.
grew a beard. What happened to Steve?
I lost all the hair.
Yeah.
That's an improvement.
About time.
Bob, you're late because of a terrible accident on the highway, right?
Oh, that's not good.
No, that's why I was late in the morning. This afternoon, it was because it's Friday traffic.
Oh, I see. And there's nothing you could do about that, I take it.
Well, I could have left earlier, but
But,
my boss might have been like, "No, he got to work a full day."
Well, Bob, let me introduce you to Paolo. He's from Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
Come on, Jay.
I remember. You got to give me 3 chances, and I'll get there. He's a software developer, and for some reason, he doesn't like you. He was just about to tell us why. So go ahead.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Not true. Not true.
Untrue. Fiction.
Words in my mouth. Fiction. Yeah.
Fiction.
Yeah.
I guess
That's
that
fiction.
was
Other science of fiction. Yeah.
Hey, Paolo, what does your country? What's their stance on Ukraine? Like, what's the vibe over there?
Well, the people, we don't obviously not enjoying it, worried, and there's been a bit of convincing. The popular opinion has convinced the government to be more accepting of Ukrainian refugees, because initially, compared to the EU, having thanks to Brexit, they were making it more difficult. Than the EU waived all visa requirements, just said was welcoming. Instead, the UK was initially putting them through the ringer in terms of having to apply and do the online, and then telling them they were going to the border on the coast of north of France to cross the channel, and they were like, no, you have to apply before you come to the UK from France and stuff like that. So there was a bit of pushback against that, and thankfully now they're opening up more, and so there's a way to register. People can I think they released it today that you can register online to say that, like, people like me, like UK citizens, residents, to say, oh, I have room available in my house. and you go
Wow.
register so you can say that somebody can come and stay with you.
How many refugees does your country have? Do you know?
In total, no
Yeah.
idea. Or you mean Ukrainian? Like I don't really know off the top of my head. I know it's less than other countries for sure because of hostile policies. It's literally called hostile in the name from the government. Hostile environment. That's it. They like create a hostile environment to asylum seekers and immigrants, unless they're the right kind of immigrants, you know, who in jobs that are deemed to be worthy.
That's interesting. I mean, that's when they say that. I mean, are they actually saying like they're worried about the behavior of immigrants in the country?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's been going on for, I don't know, the best part at least of 20 years, at least since I've lived in the UK. I'm not originally from the UK. Well, I sort of am, but also not. So yeah, it's sort of a dog whistle, playing to certain crowds, I guess. It's built up over the years to get more and more towards that rhetoric. But it's not everybody, but it's a sizable chunk of people. So it's not like painting the entire country with one brush, but it's sizable enough that it plays well, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's nothing that you've not encountered in the US anyway, in terms of like that kind of rhetoric and playing to a particular your base, and it works. And yeah, basically we had some kind of like in the US, it's mainly been two parties who dominated politics, and then there was the party, you know, Nigel Farage, UK Independence Party, the ones who were mainly driving the rhetoric towards Brexit, but they helped shift the window more rightwards for pretty much all the main parties. So like the discourse went further to the right over time. So like there were some policies that they had and some other parties had in the early 2000s, which were seen as like, whoa, those are extreme, but now they're in the mainstream.
That's exactly what's happening in the United States. Yeah, like everything has moved so far to the right that, you know, someone that's considered to be, you know, kind of middle of the road politically, you know, 10 years ago they would have been considered a conservative. But now it's pushed so far, like, you know, we don't even know where the boundaries are anymore. Like, that's how wacky it is over here.
Yeah, for me, it's a sign of decadence in some ways, like of a decaying empire, sort of thing. Not that it's an empire, but like, yeah, it's just certain things that back in the day, and it's not even back in the day, like even a decade ago, that a politician would have resigned. Now it's just brushed under the carpet, like just denied and just brushed under the carpet, and then they continue. Yeah. It's like just flabbergasting.
Ian, is George having trouble?
Yeah, he can't connect. We're trying to get him, but I'm trying a different funky way to get him here. We shall see.
Yeah, because I see him texting, and I'm like, oh, he's still having problems. All right, let's move on to you, Bob.
Yeah, Bob, where are you from?
Yeah, tell us about yourself.
So I got a LPT. Do you know what that is?
A low potassium threshold?
No. Think more Reddit.
Oh. No thanks.
A loose prostate.
Close. It's a
Reddit.
It's a life pro tip. Okay, which is
like a life hack.
Subreddits that I really like. So I got this hanging from my rearview mirror in my car. This is a cool little Egyptian skull thing, which I love. So Jay's kids loved it. They said, Uncle Bob, could I have that? And of course I say, of course not. You can't have it, but you can play with it. And I even let them play with it overnight. And then I get a call from Jay's wife. It's like, Bob, did you know that there was a knife in here? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Turns out,
you gotta pull it out on camera.
Oh yeah, what? Dirk.
Pull it out on camera so they could see where it was.
Okay.
It's like
goes right in here.
So my kids pull. This is what I hear. I'm in the house.
Oh my god.
And I hear you know how like 5% of my attention is being, you know, like the kids are in the house, I hear everything that's going on, but I'm not paying full attention to it. So semi-unconsciously I hear, yeah, look at that. It's pointy. Yeah, it's really sharp too. And I'm like, what? I turn, I'm like,
Sorry,
what? And I see Olivia holding that, like it's a little death dagger, that thing. It is wicked sharp. And I walked over to her slowly. I'm like, Olivia, like, oh my gosh, don't move. Holy Christ, I was so freaked out. So we took a video for Bob.
I love it even more now, of course.
I know.
Yeah.
I wonder how many knives you're surrounded by right now, Bob, that you don't even know about.
Oh my God, so funny.
Well, yes, because no one was injured. It can be funny. Yes, thank you.
Right. So remove all the knives of things that you loan your nieces and nephews that are like less than 8, 9 years old.
That's
your
Bob
life tip.
pro tip. That's a Bob pro tip. I'm not a life
Bob pro tip. And avoid direct gamma ray burst. You know, get out of the way of those too.
At all costs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, I wanted to talk a little bit more with you guys about Ukraine and the war going on, because I read recently, you know, there's I guess the latest development is that there is legitimate negotiation going on, right? When I say legitimate, like both sides are saying what they want, and some things have been agreed upon, apparently. You know, like for instance, Putin does not want Ukraine to join NATO and doesn't want the country to be armed.
Right.
And then Ukraine is saying, yeah, but what about our protection? Like they're worried about not being protected, which I'm not even crystal clear what they mean by that. Like not being taken over by another country. Like, and how could Russia guarantee that nothing bad's going to happen to them from other countries? Not that, you know, they probably, that's not the threat that they're talking about. They're basically talking about, you know, their future relationship with Russia. But I don't know. I mean, I just think, you know, I understand that the war needs to end and that some concessions need to be made, but you know, promising to not join NATO is exactly 180 degrees, in my opinion, the wrong direction, because that's exactly what that country needs to do because of exactly what's going on inside that country. You know, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Wow. Highly complex, you know, very nuanced subject overall, very difficult for us to sort of really give any sort of in-depth feedback on because of the nuance, because of the history.
Yeah.
But you know, look, there are reasons, I think, why countries are part of NATO and frankly are not part of NATO, and I'm not sure we're really have all the facts as far as, you know, lay people to make that sort of final determination. I know generally what you're saying, Jay, but you know, Russia does see NATO as a dormant threat to its own. So an expansion of NATO increases that threat, right? It's considered a provocative move, and I'm by no means defending one side, the other, you know, for or against this thing. I'm just spitballing here, kind of.
Yeah, no, we get it.
But you try to avoid those kinds of provocations, and whenever possible, you know, to try to keep everybody calm in the entire situation. You know, there are plenty of other countries, states in Europe that also are not part of NATO. Finland, right? Sweden are not part of NATO.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know if they recently asked or have been working on trying to petition, maybe slowly, diplomatically over a very long time, trying to, you know, work their way into the NATO alliance. But, you know, even those countries which don't have this sort of direct conflict that's going on, why, you could ask the same question, why aren't they also part of the alliance? And I believe my understanding is just to keep everybody calm on both sides of the issue.
Well, also there's legitimate hoops that a country has to jump through in order to join NATO. Like, it's not just like, you know, one meeting negotiation. Like, they have to be, they have to have achieved certain cultural, you know, like I can't remember all that. I literally read this, when the war started. I read about like the requirements that they need to meet. It's not an easy list to get to. It's not easy to achieve everything that you have to. But I don't. Some people in the text wrote that Ukraine will never join NATO, and is that because the country can't meet the requirements, or is it because of this situation specifically? Like Russia will go berserk if they join. I'm not sure what the answer is.
I don't think Russia wants any country on their border on their immediate border to be a NATO aligned country.
But that says it all, right? Isn't that a mouthful? Because that means that Russia is legitimately threatened by NATO, which is nice to know. And boy, did Putin hand us that information on a silver platter. Yeah, we know that he does not like it, and marginally, on some level, is shitting a brick because of NATO's power. And the fact that he doesn't want any countries that border Russia to join NATO specifically means what? Is it a strategic thing he doesn't like, or is he planning on pushing Russia's borders into all the countries that bordered Russia? Who the hell knows what he's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But NATO exists because of Russia, legitimately, in my opinion, especially now after what happened in Ukraine. And if I were in a any country in Europe that didn't belong to NATO, if I was a citizen of those countries, I would be doing everything I could to try to make it so that our country joined NATO, right? That's really the only safety mechanism that they have, other than going to war themselves against Russia, that's not a good idea.
Well, NATO stems back to right after World War II. It was the unity group of nations to counter the Warsaw Pact. So you got to go back to the late 1940s, basically, is where this all began. And yeah, this is kind of a remnant in a way to those times, and kind of shows you that some things have changed, obviously, but also some things really haven't changed in 70, almost now 80 years of history that we're going on. And it's been right, even though the Soviet Union came apart in the late 80s and early 90s, NATO did not, and the Warsaw Pact also came apart as a result of that as well. But NATO had the wherewithal, the fortitude, and frankly the good foresight to remain a unity agreement between nations in case there were times in which it would need to be called upon again. And so yeah, it's good that we have NATO, frankly, for times like this. But Ukraine becoming part of NATO is it would be extremely problematic and provocative.
I think it
just would be.
I think Putin and Russia's response would be very bad. But
yeah. Oh, and by the way, I've been reading, and about this, and I've been reading some articles and some comments posted by people who are actually have studied the old Soviet Union and Russia, and this is their bailiwick. This is what they've been concentrating on and writing about for decades now. And more than one of them, in fact, quite a few of them have the opinion that Vladimir Putin is clearly not a stable person with a stable mind, and he's kind of going into areas that are scary, scarier than normal, and he's
like
kind
what?
of even operating outside of his own sort of crazy baseline. With everything that is going on, and that's sort of something you have to be a little bit extra careful about. Is that you have this person who's, first of all, not stable to begin with, in a heightened sort of state of instability, mentally speaking, is what they're talking about, and willing, and just may one day, set certain things into motion that can't be taken back and can be, ultra destructive to a lot of people. That's what their opinions are of this matter, and they feel like this really has to be handled very, very delicately, and by frankly, some of the people who know the most about this situation, this history, and the conditions on the ground, so that we don't push him so that Putin doesn't get pushed so far that he will actually snap.
Sure,
and do something that you can't take back.
I think that the only way to get out of this is to give him an out. He has to somehow save some type of face. It's for the greater good, right? So I don't know how much if Ukraine is operating completely on their own, but I do know that they had other countries recently come and talked to them in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
So there is definitely some type of communication going on where they're trying to strategize and coordinate and figure out like what the path out of this is. So at some point, if Putin isn't given a way out, I agree that he might blow a gasket, like whatever you want to call it. He might snap and something bad could really happen. So it's a shitty situation and it's super delicate. And I couldn't imagine.
It is super delicate, and which is why we're not rushing to clear the airspace or directly send fighter jets and some of our most sophisticated battle weapons and things and arming Ukraine in this fight, because those are the kinds of things that these people who are writing about it are sort of making sure they give their warning about. Be really careful if about doing that, because there is definite risks involved, beyond just even the obvious stuff.
Yeah.
And they continue to bring up the mental state of Vladimir Putin and how he's really, even for his own baseline, is not in his right mind right now. They're very scared about that, and that has me. That's what I'm concerned about too, because they're concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think at this point the world does understand Putin's motivation. He wants the Soviet Union back. He wants the land that they lost. For whatever, for his own personal glory. Whoever the hell knows what's rattling around.
Oh yeah, he has dreams of empire, no doubt about it.
But my next question, and I think I brought this up last week. I think about this every day. What happens after, let's say that this situation is settled somehow, right? The troops move out and the tension settles down a little bit. Like, first, is Russia going to be held financially accountable for the trillions of dollars of damage that they've done to Ukraine? That's number one. And number two, what happens? Like, what happens to all the sanctions? Are these things going to be, rolled back immediately if Russia pulls out? Is that going to be one of their bargaining chips, that we basically have to pull back all the sanctions? Because at this point, imagine you're a European country, like let's take Germany, for instance. Germany said that they're going to be independent from a fuel perspective of Russia in about, I think they said 8 to 12 months, if I'm remembering the time frame correctly. But it is definitely like within the year range. Every country that was dependent on Russia is looking for energy independence from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And when they achieve that, why would they ever go back? Right? I just don't see what's going to happen to these sanctions. I mean, if they negotiate to have all sanctions lifted, what if some countries are like, nah, we're not interested. We're not going to let this happen to us again. We're going to get our natural gas from 3 other different places and not Russia anymore. Like that, how can that be rolled back? That can't. I
have
be
somebody with a perspective on all of this. Let's see if it works. There he is.
Hey, George, can you hear us? Okay.
45 minutes I've been trying to get into this damn chat.
It's not my fault.
45 minutes. 20 George, of 5 I logged in.
George, we would have had you on, but I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but Paolo, he was like, no, I don't like George. He makes me very uncomfortable.
Yes.
He said something about his pants. I don't know.
There's a quota of beautiful men. There's a quota.
First off, Paolo, you're very attractive. Let me say, just number one.
Thank you.
You're probably
likewise
the best looking guy here. All right, good. Let's get that out of the way. What? I mean, poor Ian. I'm sitting here. Ian's like, well, restart. I'm like, I restarted 3 times. Well, try a different browser. I've tried 3 browsers. Well, try incognito. I'm like, what the hell is incognito?
Yeah, incognito. Google incognito.
Whatever. I mean, yeah.
George, George,
what did it?
Yeah,
it's a very roundabout. I'm using our video ninja setup into OBS, out of OBS. It's just wacky.
I give you credit though, George, because you didn't give up. 45 minutes of really figuring out a way to get in here. I mean, frankly, you had every right after 10 minutes to say, I'm out. Next, I'm out.
I signed that contract with Steve 10 years ago, and I have no outs. I mean,
you made a deal with the devil?
My left testicle.
Oh my gosh.
Totally.
Oh, we all
George, let me catch you up. I would love to hear your. I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off, because I'm not in my usual.
Oh no, I was just saying, like, I don't know what I sound like. You guys sound like you're in the absolute bowels of a submarine, trying to get the leak to stop, which is fine. I can deal with it. But I hope I sound okay, because you guys fine. Are like, how do I sound? Which is fine. Which is it's only fine. Slightly different than you normally sound.
I don't know if that's fine, but okay.
It's all good. So yes, catch me up. What are we talking about?
Well,
are we talking about food?
About Ukraine, and I'm pondering this whole idea of like what happens when the war ends, if it ends peacefully enough. And there's two questions that I would like some insight on. One, is Russia going to pay for the trillions of dollars of damage, or are they going to negotiate that away? And two, what happens to all the sanctions? Because countries are now making moves to become energy independent of Russia, right? And why would any country in Europe in their right mind go back to taking energy from Russia, knowing that Russia could very easily pull this same exact stunt next year? So what's your take on that?
It's all contingent on who's sitting at the big desk. If Putin gets knocked off, let's say, by some internal thing, whether it's a literal killing or he ends up, being ill and, in a hospital somewhere because all of a sudden he's got, whatever he's got, and it's another person at the table that's kind of leading the negotiations, that changes the timbre of everything. Good or bad, you can trust another person according to what they're supposedly saying to you. Look, whenever you have big conflicts like this, there are sea changes that happen. I think it's going to be, I think you're right, Jay. I think there is no going back. I think when European countries can realize that 35 or whatever, 40% of the oil that they're requiring, they might not necessarily need to go back into business with them. They're going to say, well, we're done. And that entire market is going to change.
Yeah.
And then the Russian people are going to pay for it on some level, because their whole economic model is going to change and modify, because now they've got their number one export is basically gone. So, does it become some kind of power vacuum where, that could split up into a bunch of different state caucuses or whatever they would call it? No one's got insight, because this is so 21st century unprecedented. This stuff has happened before, but it's been 100 years ago where you had land wars in Europe are a 70-year-old idea, which is pre-nuclear, pre-internet, pre-communications, pre-globalism, really.
Yeah.
So it's like the bets you can't even determine what may happen. Did you guys see the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing, by the way? But have you talked about that?
Go ahead, George. Tell us about it.
Yes.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger made this 9-minute video where he's talking directly to his Russian fans.
It's trending on Russian social media.
It's amazing. It's amazing. He talks about his father being a Nazi. He says, okay, so my father was a Nazi, and he went into Stalingrad under false pretenses, and he fought there, and the rest of his life he was a broken man because he killed people under false pretenses. I don't want my Russian friends to have the same fate as my father. And you're like that's the angle he's taking. It's really, really smart. It's a really smart angle to be like, I know what it's like to have a family member that's been lied to by their government. Your government is lying to you. There are no Nazis in Ukraine. There is no humanitarian crisis that hasn't been caused by your leaders. We understand you are not your government. Russian people are good. He talks about the first time he was a kid. He was 14 and he met this famous Russian bodybuilder. He was the first guy to lift 200 kilograms, do some kind of a press lift. He was the first guy to do it. Vitaly something, I forget. He's 14 and he meets the guy, right? under some weird circumstances. He puts a picture of him up in his room, and his dad's like, "Take that picture down. That's a Russian. We don't like Russians." And Arnold's like, "I don't care what he is. He's amazing. He's like my inspiration." So he's taking this whole like humanitarian angle of like, we're individuals, we're people, and look at me. You like my movies, you like my history. I'm not bullshitting you. You're being lied to. You're a proud people. You're a wonderful people. It's so good. It's so smart, and probably will have a much larger effect than Biden himself talking, or even Zelensky talking on some level to the Russian people, because the world of celebrity is the way it is, and people are gonna be like, "Hey, I love the Terminator. What? Why he's not? Why would he lie to us?"
Yeah, the trust
check
quotient,
it out.
right? It's the trust quotient. Like, for people tend to trust celebrities and entertainers that have got inside, right? They've gotten into the inside,
which can be problematic, by the way. That's not always
absolutely.
Good thing,
there's a cost to that. There's an absolute cost to that. But the fact that this is such a well thought out sort of speech and diatribe. Apparently, he wrote it with some Ukrainian friends. He wrote it with some other people, and
Arnold's a politician. I mean, didn't make no mistake about it. He's a seasoned politician.
No question. So it's just such the perfect tone.
Yeah,
very savvy. It's a very savvy. He talks about our insurrection, how he felt when that was happening, when he saw it in his own country. That people were sort of lied to, and what that led to. So it's this very I get it. I get that you don't that you're feeling a certain way, but listen, this is what's going on, and you're better than this. It's wonderful. It's really wonderful.
Arnie rocks.
Yeah, I mean,
no question.
It's very relieving to hear a celebrity use their celebrity in what we interpret as a positive way, right? Because it's so abused. Evan was correct, right? It's an abused position in so many ways. Basically horribly. every day a celebrity abuses their position. But yeah, I mean, Arnold, I think really, I loved all of his messaging, during the Trump time, and I just politically, I don't agree 100%, but I don't agree 100% with anyone. But I mean, I just think that the way that he delivers his messaging is powerful, and in most cases, I agree with what he's saying. And I think this is fantastic. I can't wait to watch that.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool, and will probably, like I said, have a much larger impact. And that's how you change stuff, where you get people, you get the sort of. You hit them in the dot and hit them in their wallet. The fact that one oligarch, no one's going to fuel his boat. Have you seen that guy?
Yeah.
He's in the Netherlands or somewhere, wherever he is, and they're like, "No, we're not going to give you fuel. You can row home if you want. Go screw. We're not going to fuel up your boat."
They're also impounding all their yachts all over the place. In Holland, they've impounded one. Some in Italy, they've impounded some. Or they refused some. I think Italian guys was meant to repair somebody's boat, and they were like,
did Putin forget to tell his friends ahead of time what was about to happen and to get out of these places, so that they could?
But they've been getting away with it for years of having the dual life of going, Western life is terrible, but we're sending all our kids. And we're buying all property in London for tens of millions of pounds, and we love it. Or for their mistresses or second wives, because apparently they will have second wives, their ministers and stuff, and it's an unusual thing. And some of them, they have property. Loads of them have property in London for money laundering reasons, because it's a safe haven for that. And and the beginning, so they got used to hobnobbing with the rich and powerful in the West while dunking on it the whole time. Now it's coming to roost finally, at some level at least.
Yeah, that's right. These things do not last.
Paolo, you could answer this for me in your one data point, but something that I observed, right? So I'm watching President Zelensky speak, and then I'm watching Putin talk, and digesting what he's saying. And seeing through the political BS that Putin is spewing, right? Because we know what the truth is. I hope that we have a close version of what the reality is that's going on. I think we do. But hearing him and hearing about the Russian media spinning reality on such a profound level, it gave me perspective on what happened in the United States while Trump was president. And Paolo, I wanted to ask you, did you, when the Trump thing was happening here in the U.S., did you see Trump in a similar way that you see Putin spewing complete bullshit?
Yeah, I mean the difference is that well, I don't know if at least, but like obviously Putin was always part of politics. He was like from FSB or whatever it was, and so he was part of the system in Russia for forever. He was chosen as the successor from Yeltsin. He's been there forever. Trump obviously was, the apprentice guy, so it was a bit more flabbergasting. But yeah, no, yes, it was at least for me and my peers and my friends and my social circles, it was, I guess in some way, the same for in America for some people when you saw him going down those escalators, that it was like, this is a joke, right? Like, yeah, and it was just perceived. It was, yeah, obviously it was easier for us to see it because there's a detachment. It's not your own country, so there is that as a comfort. But yeah, it was just head shaking, going like, can't believe it, but like how are people voting for this guy? But then every country has it kind of now. I mean, so I'm half Italian. Well, I'm also half Italian. We had Berlusconi in the 90s. He's the proto-Trump in many ways. The businessman is like, I'm going to get into politics. I'm a businessman. I'm gonna save the country because those corruption scandals in the early 90s and whatever, and the old guard of politics died. Well, sort of zombified more than died. And then he did the big play. He had his big. He had 3 television stations and TV, successful football, soccer team. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go and I'm gonna be the guy. I'm gonna run the country like it's a business and stuff like that. And that did not go to plan. But loads of people voted for him initially, like because they believed it. Like he's been super successful. Let's do it. Obviously his success came mainly from corruption, but
I guess any country could have this type of thing happen. I mean, I was shocked when the Trump reality really hit me. When I started to really see what was going on in the United States because of Trump, that was such a sobering, time period for me. I couldn't believe to what depths he went and to how full in half the country was. I never thought that something like that could happen. And
it kind of still is, no? Half the country still full in.
Oh, of course. It's a permanent fixture now.
Third. It's a thing. Third, yeah.
Third, whatever. Yeah, it's a sizable chunk of people. But my concern is what about the next guy or gal or whatever who's going to be more savvy?
Yeah,
going to be kind of similar, but a bit more media savvy. It's not going to say quite as many outrageous things like the bleach or whatever. It's going to be a little bit more composed.
Well, yeah, confident Trump is scary.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Could you imagine? Forget it. That would be like, that would end democracy in this country. I mean, he came close. We came close, guys.
That's what Putin was initially. He was a very competent at what he did, and now like he's got older and he's surrounded himself by yes men. And you see that table, that massive long table, where he has to keep them at a long distance because he doesn't trust them. Or he's fired various people because he's worried of being poisoned. He's like, it's almost from a book or whatever. But his first 10, 15 years, he was competent, at least for his own interests, at least.
But in the darkness of dealing with Trump and then the war in Ukraine, I mean, look at something remarkable has happened. Zelensky has shown himself to be this profoundly honorable, just unbelievable force. I'm like shocked that someone that good actually made it to a high level in politics, sadly, but I can't tell you how impressed I am with him. Still, imagine, I don't even know how he's getting sleep. Just think about being under that pressure. That man is a monument at this point.
It's not just him though, Jay. What's astounding, and I actually was talking with my buddy Slough today about this, was that if the legacy of this war is that Ukrainians get the reputation as being the badasses that they are, that'll be like one positive thing, because
like the old lady going like, have the seeds, right? That's like, oh well,
exactly. And then just ballsy. Literally, teachers and family members in basements just dealing with it, and then soldiers Oh, forget about it. Yeah, I mean, those
millionaires who stayed, they could have easily left.
I mean, everybody could. I mean, Zelensky was offered, basically a plane ride and probably a mountain of cash to leave. He could be in Washington D.C. right now if he wanted to. He could be in London, but no. And then again, that's one thing. The leaders are one thing, but it's to see the continued efforts of the populace and the unified sort of message of the populace of like, no, we're not giving in. The guy carrying the landmine while smoking a cigarette.
Yes.
Have you seen this guy?
Yeah.
This guy picks up a landmine basically out of the street so that a tank can drive by or a car can drive by. He's got the cigarette, right? And he's just like walking. He puts the landmine down. I'm like, that exemplifies that kind of like, what are you gonna do? I got a fucking landmine here. What are you gonna do? It's amazing.
When your homeland is invaded, heroes pop up where you never knew that there were heroes.
And now we get to see them in real time on TikTok and Facebook and all that kind of stuff.
At a sad cost, but yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, the cost is going to be immeasurable in terms of not just property but lives. I mean, people are going to continue to be killed, and it's obscene. It's obscene. But
it's criminal. Frankly, it's criminal, is what it is.
No question.
These are war crimes, and they do have to be. The war crime 100%. Tribunal at some point will need to be convened for this.
100%.
I agree with that.
Isn't the problem that Russia's not part of it or whatever? So it's not like it's ever going to.
Oh yeah, they'll ignore whatever. I mean but at the same time that what's right is right, and
even if it's just pro forma, at least do it.
If nothing else, give the Russian people something to rally around to try to get him out from within. That would be the best way of it happening. Sort of like the way the Soviet Union collapsed back in the late 80s, early 90s. It happened from within. People took it down. That's generally yes. That's right. That's right. Who would have thought that? That was not predictable.
If you had asked me in 1987 as a junior in high school, senior in high school, whatever it was, like, do you think in 3 years the Soviet Union will no longer exist? I would have bet any amount of money, any property, anything that you were out of your mind.
Yep.
That was the rest of my life. There was going to be a Soviet Union. As someone who was in the midst of the fighting sort of against it in the way that we did as the Ukrainian diaspora here. And the fact that it basically in 2 years it went from full on Soviet to nothing, without a single a shot being fired.
Wars, right? Yeah, no real battles. It was little here and there, but really nothing.
Which the funny thing, it was wonderful, but then at the same time, it was kind of like, what the hell was that all about?
Yeah.
Like 70 years of oppressive.
Okay, we're done.
Crazy. We're done. Okay,
we had enough with that. Yeah.
All right.
That experiment.
It was this weird survivor guilt, and then we got as members of the Ukrainian community here, we get to meet people, that came over in the 90s from there, who we were like, hey, we maintain the culture for you, and on some level they could give a shit because they just wanted VCRs. Yeah. They wanted Big Macs, so we're there like, hey, nationalism, Ukrainian pride, we've maintained the culture for you. We did our best. And they're like, yes, where do I get
where can I get a car that actually works now?
And we're like, what? And of course they wanted a goddamn Xbox because they never got to have that kind of stuff. But
Blue
we were
jeans
sort of like as a diaspora, we're just like, oh, okay.
Right. Can we have some?
It's like this little heartbreak we sort of had of like, yeah, of course they want DVD players. And God, musicians, all we would talk about would be gear. I mean, like, musicians are bad enough anyway, talking about gear all the time. But I'd be at some gig and some guy who had just come 5 years ago would be like, George, look at this. I have the X597K. It's amazing. I'm like, okay, cool. That's great. No, it's the best. It's the fucking best, George. I
love that. Oh my God, I love that.
And I'd be like, yeah, what about our cultural traditions that we upheld? No, this has digital. It's digital. You can make it so it's all signal process. Signal process, pure. No bullshit. It's pure. It's amazing. All right.
Hey, that's cool. Several people over the last few times that we've discussed this have brought up, like, what about the United States and George W. Bush did that? I'm like, yeah, you're right. No one's denying that the United States hasn't pulled some pretty effed up maneuvers I wouldn't even want to comment on trying to compare it to Ukraine because I just simply don't feel like I'm well versed enough in it. But we're fully aware that the United States has done some horrible things. The U.S. is not immune to this bullshit as well. And I want to apologize to the rest of the world for Trump coming out of the United States. I mean, what the hell? Like, we literally had the worst politician of all time. I would basically put him down as the absolute worst politician of all time, next to Hitler. That's where I would put Trump. That guy almost totaled the United States. So
there is a strange.
I politely disagree with that statement, Jay.
You can disagree. I lived through it, Ev. That's probably why I might discount a few other crazy things that the United States had.
I hear you. I just the Hitler gambit. I'm sorry. I can't go there.
There is a
Hitler. I said next to Hitler. I didn't put him over Hitler.
Oh, okay. You could have said Stalin. I know.
You're right. You could name people that have done worse, but I'm essentially saying to the United States, this guy has been the worst thing that has ever happened to our country. By far. He literally almost ended our country. Think about where we would have been if his move to take over the government happened. What would be going on in the United States right now? Think about it, Evan. It still can happen.
Like, sure, it can happen. I'm not saying it's not, but I mean, our system is designed with lots of stop firewalls along the way to stop those kinds of things from happening. Very difficult for any one person or kind of one group of people to wrest control of a 50 state union. I mean,
it's not as difficult though as we thought, and I think Trump exposed a lot of the weak points in our system, and we should be taking steps now to harden those weak points, and we're not. So
yeah, I agree about that.
I mean, if he wins, if he's elected, I think they will go the full distance that they wanted to go last time, and all of those norms that we think are rational, and of course no one's going to break these norms. He's going to blast them harder than he even did before, and so that's when we're going to be truly fucked.
I mean, okay, but I mean, again, you're kind of discounting all the things in place to stop that. Exactly that.
Yeah, but Evan, in some after the election, some of these big safeguards you're talking about was one person in one state, and if they went the other way, then things could have gone completely downhill. Those safeguards, these are not bulletproof walls. These are like a few people. There's literally a handful of people that could have completely made this last election be much more horrific than it even was. I mean, those safeguards suck. And all those people that stopped Trump are now not there. They've been replaced. And
I don't disagree. We do have safeguards. I just don't feel confident in them anymore, like I did previous. Literally, I didn't realize how shaky things were until the last 6 years.
Because they were norms, Jay. They were norms. They weren't codified into
it was an
laws or anything similar. They're just norms that no rational person would ever breach, but he did. And so now we got to turn those norms and standards into something a lot more stronger, and it doesn't seem to be a priority. The
largest difference is a question of timing. Someone like Putin invades Ukraine, and in a matter of days, he's trying to make massive changes and influence on another country. Republicans or conservatives or whatever. I don't want to say conservatives, but the current GOP, in terms of their strategies, and to their credit, have been playing a long game, and it wouldn't necessarily take. It wouldn't be done by an individual like Trump, but Trump could very easily get the stone moving. And once that thing is rolling, it's like an avalanche. It's like a slow thing that then before you know it, you're up to your nose in snow. And that's the thing, is that it is these slow, like Bob said, these breaking down of norms. So it's not so much that Trump single-handedly destroys democracy. Yeah. It doesn't, because Evan's right, because there are stop guards. The problem is those stop guards get weaker and weaker and weaker and further paced apart, so that over the span of 5, 6, 8, 3, 4 different, let's say, administrations, all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, what happened? You know, that's the real danger, because it's incremental small stuff that even those small things can feel huge in the moment, but it's one after the other like a tidal wave, and that's the most insidious thing. And it's been like a 40-year plan, which they've done. I mean, look, we're talking about abortion rights again. You know, it's like,
I know, right? Can you imagine?
Codified laws that are 40 years old are being like, we should talk about it again, because what did they do? They got the judges in the places they wanted the judges. They got that discussion to be maintained. So it's, you know, I mean, we're back to gay rights now again, where it's like, you know, you can't teach children about someone having two fathers. Yeah. I mean, it's you know, yeah, it's just in Florida, but okay, and then where? And then where? And then where? And then where? And all of a sudden, it's the, you know, the what do you call it? The Scarlet. Oh Jesus, what's the
Scarlet Letter
show? No, with the nuns with the things and the red.
Oh,
Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
Handmaid's Tale. All of a sudden, you know, you're 8 years in and it's Handmaid's Tale, and you go, wait a minute, when did that happen?
Yeah. That show was hard to watch the last couple of seasons because
tell me about it. I know.
Right.
We tend to forget we're a union of 50 small, frankly, nations. You know, really a unique situation that the United States is. We've got this, you know, federal system largely in place, but on a technical sense, and I'm not saying you guys are wrong on this stuff. These are very good, valid points and worthy of discussion. But we lose sight of the fact, that we are 50 little countries, you know, banded together for certain common purposes.
Yeah.
And when one state does tend to have these sorts of, you know, decide to go in these kinds of directions that either the other 49 or 48 choose, you know, decide to not go in, it does stand out definitely like a sore thumb. And you know what you wind up doing in that point is you have to sort of make decisions as to what you're going to support, what you're not going to support, where you're going to go, where you're ultimately not going to go. But that is the reality of it, though, is that, you know, the United States is, yes, it's one country, but it's also 50 countries all together with each their own, frankly, constitutionally protected systems. And they're all republics. By law, a state has to be a republic. That's in the Constitution. So you've got these 50 republics, each kind of doing their own thing. And that can cause a lot of friction. And we tend to look at ourselves as United States Americans, you know, overall. But look, Florida and Idaho, you know, really, what do these culturally or, you know, economically, what do states like that really have in common with each other? Not a heck of a lot, frankly. And you'll see that a lot if you can make comparisons anywhere around.
I agree, but you know, the flip on that is that we do have a shared culture. There is a shared culture, of course. And when, you know, I've traveled to other states and I certainly feel like I'm in the same country, right? And I don't feel like I'm in a foreign land in any, you know, I've been to some places that have felt pretty scary, but
Jay, there are some places that, you know, you would not frankly want to live. I wouldn't want to live in some of these places.
You bring up
it's not a state issue, though. It's not a state issue. It's a city and rural issue, because you know, Philadelphia is as different from Schnecksville as possible, and they're both in Pennsylvania. So this is not, you know, every state within it has these divided mentalities. So it's a question of, you know, people live in cities, they get exposed to more ideas, they get more used to those ideas. That's how it works. That's why cities are liberal, because you've got to live next door to a person who's going to look different from you, or maybe enjoy different things, or whatever it may be. And ultimately you go, yeah, I don't give a crap what you're doing in your private life, just as long as you know, the garbage gets picked up and we're all good to go. Rural, you know, non-city living tends to be more sameness that codifies certain kinds of beliefs. So it's, you know, yes, there's a difference between Idaho and Florida, but there's a difference between Miami and, you know, some little city up in the Panhandle. You know, there's a huge difference just within that state. So to say that, states can break off and do what they want on their own thing, it's like, well, Yeah, but no, because what, the cities are going to become little blue islands in each state, which they are anyway. So it's like the reason that we have the Articles of Confederation and all that stuff that led up to the General Constitution and the general idea of, yes, there is a federal regulatory system which is set up to codify laws that are national, that are federal. You know?
Yes, that the states authorize the federal system to use, and the 10th Amendment says that whatever they don't specifically say the federal system can do, that those rights resort back to the state. So
sure.
You know, just
but voting
there
rights,
tends
let's
to be
say,
some confusion sometimes about that.
No question. But let's look at voting rights, right? They're trying to pass a federal voting protection law, basically, that says every state has to have these rules. And it's like, if that passes, which, like, I can't believe that anyone would be against it, which is weird. Then what? You know, well, that's the whole way it goes. That's one of those things that you don't get to decide as a state of yourself, or whether it's gay marriage, or whether it's public school, or whether it's how wide a highway is supposed to be. You know, there are certain things that we agree as the United States. There it is. And that list of the things that we agree on as the United States needs to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
You know,
and some people argue the exact opposite of that, frankly.
Right. Yeah, I know exactly.
Though, guys, in the United States, I'm sure, of course, this plays in other countries as well, but I'm talking about the country I happen to live in. I mean, depending on not only where you're from, but what sex you are and what race you are, the country can be a very different thing. We're privileged, right? We are the typical white male American, right? Like, we have the least stress as far as what we were born with. There are people that live in the United States that find it to be a hostile place because of their color.
Absolutely.
Like that's such a massive problem that the United States still has. I mean, the country has got so many social issues like that. And George, I think you're right. I mean, the cities have those problems, but they're not as bad, right? Statistics show that very clearly. But when you get out into the Midwest, man, there are people that very wisely would just not go there. It's just not a safe place for certain people, and that's a terrible situation.
Look, why has the global outcry in the Ukrainian situation been the way it's been? Unfortunately, there is a huge factor that these are white people.
Yeah,
these are white people. Many of them got it, right, and their country has been invaded. How many brown people's countries have been invaded and by oppressors just as horrible as Putin? Yeah. Talk to some Syrians, talk to whatever.
Putin is
and I'm saying that as Ukrainian. Again, I love the attention that's being brought to my country, my country, of my forefathers. I respect it. I think that it's a wonderful thing that there can be this united thing, but you have to recognize, white people on TV having their houses bombed out is a very different image from brown people having their houses, bombed out on TV. And so the support tends to be what the support is. It's
right,
horrible.
George. You're right.
I mean, there were newscasters who
I keep doing this motion because this is all I have.
they were saying it out loud. Like, it's like, oh, they look like us. These are not like third world people. This is our people who have the same culture.
They're real. They're real people.
Exactly. Now it matters, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now it matters because white Christians are.
And African immigrants to Ukraine were being turned down at the borders into some European countries as refugees.
That's
white people, you come in. You guys, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hate to say it, but we live in a racist world. And it's going to take a long time to erase some of these divides, but new ones will come up. I mean, look, the transgender thing look at how crazy that is right now. I can't wrap my head around it. I don't care how I don't care about how people designate themselves at all. I think it's like, do whatever you want. The fact that people are losing sleep over that and can't admit the science at all, like they just can't perceive the science of it as well. It's mind-boggling, but that's the world we live in. And what are we going to do about it? Like, we have to teach our kids, right? I mean, think about it. What else can we do? We teach the next generation. We try to make steady incremental gain, but we'll never see it.
Nah.
Right?
Well, we're used to holding the ocean back with a broom, in the skeptical world. I mean, that's that's what it feels like on many days. It doesn't mean we give up the fight. We'll never give up this fight ever. We'll all go to our graves, I think with these thoughts and these attitudes. But at the same time, let's not kid ourselves. We're fighting 50,000 years of humans cohabitate, living in conclaves and groups and things like that. And this has been around. This is as long as there's been since the first society. And, for as much as we should battle it, absolutely it should be fought. It is the correct fight to fight. A cure, they'll never go away because we're too flawed. Human beings we're way too flawed to overcome these kinds of things. Doesn't mean we should not fight, though.
I agree. All right, guys, I'm going to pivot.
Segue.
I'm going to pivot. Thank you, Bob.
Do we want a message from Steve?
Yeah, we sent a message in. Go right to it.
Oh, did he write something?
It's going to be a video.
Oh, it's a video?
I bet anything.
No, hold on.
Okay.
Let me toggle it.
My dear Patricia.
So somebody sent this in.
Yeah, I read this.
Somebody sent this into our email. From a magazine from 94 or something like that.
Where's the email?
82. September
82. Is that what it says?
Wasn't that Bob Guccione's magazine, Omni? Was that Bob Guccione?
Nice try, George.
No, honestly.
Was it?
Wasn't it?
Steve,
Yeah.
Yes. Omni and Penthouse were the same publisher, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's Bob Guccione, right? Yeah.
Ian, can you zoom in on it so we can see?
Yeah. Let me actually bring it in a different way. I'm going to bring it in behind George, actually. So
Bob and Jay, did you know about this piece of history with Steve? You must have known this.
He's told us many times, and I got to be honest, I always kind of forget because it's not something that comes up often. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. Steve wrote some article.
Because I've known you guys since 1992, and this never came up in any discussion I've been part of.
The comment, the question to Omni?
Yeah, he wrote.
Yeah. Dear Omni,
I remember that.
I never thought this would happen to me, but I was in the mailroom and she walked in.
MALE.
Let's see if you can. Who can do Steve impersonation the best?
Yeah, who does the best Ray Romano? Go for it.
Let's see if I can zoom in on this. It's a little hard to read, but you see where it says Star Wars? That's pretty much. It's a get.
We were. So.
Is that Steve's article?
Can you? Let me see if I can zoom in even more.
Just read it, Ian.
Oh God. Okay. Let me pull it up a little bit differently. Hold on. Talk amongst yourselves. I gotta find it a little bit. Okay, here we go. What's Steve's voice? It Omni's May. Well, actually, he's like 17, so he's like in Omni's May 1982 issue. I came across an article in the antimatter section entitled "Star Wars." The article dealt with a recently discovered void in space, 300 million light years in diameter, the largest void yet discovered. Since Omni is a magazine of science, one would expect scientific explanations for the void to be presented. The only explanation offered, however, was not only non-scientific but also ludicrous. John Schuessler, I think, claims the only feasible explanation for the void would be an interstellar war between super civilizations that resulted in the liquidation of galaxies. The idea of a war between two separate civilizations is in itself unlikely. Chances are that one civilization would be more advanced than the other and would have an insuperable advantage. I also doubt that the destruction of one or even several solar systems can result in the destruction of galaxies. A supernova, the explosive death of a giant star, often occurs without such adverse effects. Schuessler also implies that we have the capabilities today to destroy the Earth, and that such an event would lead to a similar catastrophe. This idea is ridiculous. The moon itself might survive an explosion of the Earth and fall into stable orbit. Even if Schuessler's hypothetical galactic liquidation did occur, the exploding galaxies would have spewed out copious amounts of matter and radiation that would still be visible to astronomers today. The explosion would hardly result in a void. Matter does not simply cease to exist without a trace. Schuessler confesses that it is pretty difficult to come up with an explanation more believable than interstellar war, unless, of course, you want to try a scientific explanation, which he has clearly ruled out. Astronomers know that galaxies are not spread evenly throughout the heavens, but occur in galaxy clusters bound together by gravitational forces. Since these galaxy clusters are also moving away from one another, it is not difficult to explain a void in space without resorting to postulation of super civilizations. Stephen Novella, New Fairfield, Connecticut.
This is Steve's first blog post.
Yeah, basically.
How old was he? How old was he when he wrote?
So wait a minute.
He was
40. We have to.
No,
we have to paint this. We have to paint the scene here. Where
yes,
Steve?
Please.
Okay, Jay. Was there a typewriter? Was there like a family typewriter that you had? Like, what's
what
the
year?
deal? How
No, in 1982, it would have been the Commodore, like whatever,
nope,
200.
We didn't have that. It was either on an Apple IIe or it was a typewriter.
Yeah, September 1982.
Okay, so where's the typewriter? Which room is the typewriter in? Does he get to shut the door? Does he get to have his own little space for a minute?
Well, I mean, Steve likes to do a lot of stuff in the bathroom, but he would not bring a typewriter in the bathroom with him. It's probably in the boys' bedroom.
Yeah, Steve, what are you doing in there? I'm typing.
It definitely wasn't handwritten.
Magazine, mother. I'm
Leave me alone.
Omni
You
Magazine.
could definitely say that it wasn't handwritten because then they never would have been able to read it.
That's true.
Right,
He does have
right. So he kicks his brothers out of the room. He's like, guys, I need to write this. I found something wrong in a magazine. And he's sitting there, and his sweaty little teen hands are just. Well, he's so excited because he's got his angle on it, right? And he starts hunting and pecking. Or would he do a handwritten draft first? What do you think?
No.
How would he approach it?
No, he wouldn't do that. Yeah, he wouldn't
Straight
do
to
that.
typewriter.
I mean, you know what? What's remarkable, and somebody said it in the chat, and it's 100% true. Steve had his voice even back then. That sounds like
question.
Steve.
Yeah.
No question. That guy literally like he found his voice very early. Like that was so awesome.
It should have been titled Actually.
Yeah. All right, hey guys, I gotta jump.
Oh, gotta bounce.
You guys take some
too.
questions?
And shout out to Steve Siegel, Seidler, sorry, different Steve, that actually sent that in and is in the chat right now.
Paolo, it's great
Thank
to meet
Steve.
you, and I want to thank you for being a patron, brother.
Thank you.
Well
Paolo,
done.
yes.
Jay,
Thanks for
real
joining
quick.
us.
Somebody
What?
asked for a zombie show and tell. So I had to grab the closest zombies to me to show and tell. And here they are.
Pants on.
And these, do you remember these? These are the kind of toys that you just like.
Oh
yeah, yeah.
So I bought these for Jay's kids. I bought these for Olivia and Dylan.
And then you kept
Is there a knife in them?
No knives. But after a while, and based on Liz's suggestion, I kept them because they're just too awesome to give away to two kids who wouldn't appreciate them and would probably break them. So now they're mine, and they're actually on my
the kids. That's right.
That's right, Bob.
Oh my God. I just thought of something I can't say. So everybody have a great weekend, guys.
We're off next week, right? We're off next week.
We are off next week, and I'll tell you why. Because we will be in New York City at this time next week.
And you better be there too.
Yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks. But you guys can answer some questions. Oh, George,
George,
get
there.
I gotta go.
Oh, the way,
bye, everybody.
I got these today.
All right,
See
bye,
you, Jay.
Jay.
Bye. Goodbye.
Oh, let me see, George.
Yeah, I want to see what George.
Oh, cool.
So I got these,
the No Show 2, Bethlehem.
The No Show 2. There it is.
Right.
I just got these printed. I picked them up yesterday. We're gonna put them online.
go
So
to-
after
Nice
our
color
extravaganza weekend,
Good
this is our next. Isn't that fun? We kind of did a
Right.
little different. Donna and I, we don't usually go for the big, bright craziness, but we thought, you know what? It kind of works. It's kind of fun.
It does work.
So you can see, there's our quiz masters. Wait a minute.
Oh, he's that guy who wrote the letter to Omni. Cool.
Yeah, the Omni letter guy. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So this is happening in April right here in Bethlehem. We're very excited. Very excited.
I'll be there.
Get your tickets.
So yeah, go to the events page on theskepticsguide.org. I've posted the link several times.
NoShow2.eventbrite.
That also, yes, and they're also there too for the No Show. And also come see us in NYC this weekend coming up. There will be a show, a regular podcast as well next weekend. Steve will be editing that every week.
Oh yeah, the podcast goes on.
Yes, the podcast always goes on.
Nothing stops.
Yeah, private shows, extravaganzas, private shows, no show twos, nose show two. Awesome.
Yeah, we're probably not going to do it online,
Ian.
any of that stuff. For Karen was asking about if BVZ. We'll do another BVZ live stream online, but this is an in-person one. Okay, will you please describe how cloud cover affects the efficiency of your solar panels? Michigan has similar average cloud cover. I'm trying to decide if it's worthwhile.
Steve, what do you think?
Steve and also Evan, don't you have solar panels?
I do have solar panels, and they're quite efficient. Oh, cool! Actually. Yes, had them installed this past fall, and they got switched on this past winter. Actually, once the power company got caught up to the whole situation. So far, my product has been good. I have no blockage of like trees or anything. My roof line is right to the big open sky, so I'm in a very good position for solar. As far as this specific question, though, in pertaining to cloud cover, I'm sorry, I really couldn't say. I could only venture a guess that, yeah, I mean, you know, clouds will have an impact on your solar production, and that should be taken into consideration when they're doing the assessment, or they come out and they do an analysis for you, and you know, that data should be available.
Yeah, there's like a device that they spin around where it's going to be installed, and it calculates the whole year. And
there's plenty of other. I'm sure there are plenty of other people who have also had locally solar panels installed. Check with them. Check with your neighbors. See who's.
I just did a quick Google, and it said that low cloud cover can lower the efficiency, which makes sense, right? Yeah. But it said that other types of cloud cover can actually increase the efficiency. So Google it.
Oh, because it's
for more details. That's all I got.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, if it's a general overcast day, you're still generating power, right? There's still enough ambient light.
You're getting some. Oh yeah, that's
absolutely cool. Nice.
Question for everyone: where do the rogues and our guest stand on the wheels versus doors debate? Which is, are there more wheels?
Jim Morrison was an excellent songwriter.
Okay, very good. Are there more wheels or more?
Have you heard this?
Go ahead, George. Explain it.
Are there more wheels or more doors in the world? Because someone says, well, you know, every car has wheels. It's like, well, every car has 4 doors or 2 doors.
Yeah.
Right. You know, a drawer is like a door. Well, yeah, but lots of drawers have little wheels on them.
Define a wheel. Right. Yeah. How micro are we going to get here?
Yeah. I think there's more doors just because. Well, yeah. I mean, when you start tearing it apart, you realize there might be a parity, you know, of wheels to doors. But since I mean, are windows doors?
No.
Are the pulleys in old windows? You know, they have the rope pulley. Are those wheels? Yes, I would say.
Well, if there's a little. Yeah, that'd be a wheel. Maybe there's more wheels, more mechanical.
There's other wheels in factories, right? Like, you know, like assembly and all that stuff, like, you know, or like,
you have to
travelators and all that. That's all wheels.
Bob's right. You have to define.
I would assume the wheels mean that it deals with locomotion, cars, bikes, trucks, things like that.
You make an ass out of you and George.
That's you got. Well, if you're going to answer the question, you got to say what assumptions are you making. So that's what my assumption would be, that it's locomotion based wheels and doors, like how doors in houses and buildings. I mean, that's stuff like that.
I mean, a wheel is defined as something that's basically attached to some kind of central fixed point that rotates. Right? That's a wheel. It doesn't have to move. You know, a wheel. Like in a gear system or a wheel, like on a curtain rod, that's still a wheel, right? Even though it's in place.
Is a cheese thing called a wheel too? And are we counting those?
That's a wheel. A wheel. Yeah. Oh, just that. Just in Pomona, the amount of wheels of cheese.
See, Paulo?
Yeah.
So
it's way too big. Wheels on your office chair too. Yeah.
Is this like the boxers or briefs kind of argument?
It's like the dress. It's like
there's no way to answer it. There's no way to answer it, which is like the coolest question. You couldn't.
It's impossible to know a definitive answer. You can't count them.
Yeah, which is like that's the coolest question you can ask. Something that has an answer, but you could never actually find out what the answer is.
There's no
I mean, unless you did some kind of like survey of an area.
Doors and wheels are getting made every day, so the number changes constantly. It's
Right.
constantly in flux. It's not like a fixed set in time. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
You go like, oh, let's
even if you pick the
18th
day,
of
like
March,
say
2022. How many
Right.
wheels and how many doors? We don't count anything
Right.
made after 18th of March. That's it. Then,
but even that,
it'll take you
couldn't
decades, hundreds of years to
impossible.
count them. Where do you go?
Yeah, which is kind of awesome. And is there something else like that? Like what else is? I mean, like stairs and counters, or stairs and windows, or
I'm gonna say that the person who came up with the question was stoned. Like that's just like
no question.
It sounds could be like a stoner question. Like, hey,
yes.
Well, that's the stream.
It's kind of like It's kind of like the average person has less than the average human has less than 2 legs. It's sort of like that kind of thing,
Yeah.
Right.
That is true.
Which is like,
slightly
really?
less, but true. Technically true.
Yeah. Technically, that's a stoner kind of realization. Like, dude, the average human has less than 2 arms.
Whoa! You better pass that over here, man.
I'm gonna stare at my hand for a while.
Now.
But then you'd have to define average because
yes,
right.
Because some definitions of average, mean, median, mode. It's 2 and technically though less than 2. Whatever you get my
very
idea.
true, very true.
Yeah,
cool. Cocktail party conversation kind of stuff. But beyond that,
totally.
You can't really. It has no purpose.
Are there more ninjas or pirates? That's the real question.
Yes.
Are there more ninjas or pirates?
Yeah, same kind of question.
Same kind of question. Yes, because every house has a ninja and a pirate usually.
We're using
the
ninjas.
ninjas.
At least 2 ninjas, 2 pirates.
Do we still use the ninja system for streaming, Ian? Is that part of, or is that old?
Ooh, there you go. There's one.
We are technically using it with George right now.
Right there.
So there you go.
See, ninja. See, you don't even know when it's coming. Hence the ninja.
There's one.
Right.
See? Perfect.
What else?
Well, boys, we're going to see each other next weekend.
I know, George.
I'm excited. It's been too long in person, and we hope that we can have lots of people come and have a wonderful evening out with us, a safe, smart evening out with us. It's going to be wonderful. Extravaganzas are always a blast.
Always.
And you can see what Ian looks like, which is also the best thing about him.
I'll be wearing a full face mask.
Second best.
I'll be too busy
ripping off.
I'll be too busy solving that wheel door issue.
Yes.
That's right.
Instead of doing anything else.
Unsolvable.
All right.
Hey, Paolo, nice to meet you, sir.
Yes, Paolo.
Likewise.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.
Enjoy your podcast, George.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's very nice. That's very
listen
nice
to
of you to say. Yay. Oh, cool. Cool. Yes, I'm actually off to rehearsal. Off to my Spamalot rehearsal. I got to be there at 7.
That's
so.
right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I got to head back to work myself.
Very excited.
Toodaloo.
I'm slowly learning. Slowly.
Until we meet again.
Oh my! Everyone is 20 years younger than I am, and their memory is like, oh yeah, I learned it yesterday. And I'm like, I'm going to need 6 months and a protractor and a gallon of Gatorade to learn these 4 lines because I just can't remember stuff anymore. But it's okay. We'll make it work. All right, boys. Have a lovely weekend.
Bye, people.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm going to roll the outro.
Skeptic's Guide to the Universe is produced by SGU Productions, dedicated to promoting science and critical thinking. For more information, visit us at theskepticsguide.org. Send your questions to info@theskepticsguide.org. And if you would like to support the show and all the work that we do, go to patreon.com/skepticsguide and consider becoming a patron and becoming part of the SGU community. Our listeners and supporters are what make SGU possible.
Paulo, how did I know you were gonna?
We still did it. Even after Jay said, "Don't do it."
Don't tell Jay. All right,
this
will be our secret. Okay.
All right, fair enough.
All right, welcome to the real post.
Yeah, there you go.
Post stream experience. Paulo, thank you so much, really, for being here and
thank you for having me.
Being a patron and everything, and listening to us. Kind of just wander off in different directions about United States politics, which I don't expect many other people in the world to really comprehend, and fault of their own.
I follow it, I guess, above average. I don't know. Like, politics is kind of a hobby sort of thing. Weird hobby.
It is. I mean, we all have to be a part of. We all have our toe in that water to varying degrees.
Well, and then I guess U.S. politics is slightly more for people outside the U.S. just because of the cultural or the geopolitical importance of the U.S. So it's slightly more concerning if things seem a bit dicey in the U.S. It's like, it does have an impact, even if you're not in the U.S. In different ways. And that's also one of the things also with Ukraine. It does have an impact.
It does, absolutely.
Especially Europe more so than in America, but like
America
also it has an impact. So
it is one planet, and what happens over there eventually has repercussions over in this side of
ever more true
this planet. So I mean, these are just facts, and a lot of these things are very nuanced. And although we all have opinions on a lot of things, and things we read and stuff, frankly, none of us are experts in this. We would have to really invite some people on whose lives and careers this is in order to really have a good appreciation of a lot of these nuanced issues. And believe me, they are nuanced.
And there's it's also more difficult not to bring your biases.
Of course,
like compared to other aspects of life, it's a little bit easier to be aware of your biases instead of political stuff. There's politics and culture and beliefs kind of mesh, and those are the ones where, at least I know for myself, your own biases kind of get
constantly. I'm constantly at I won't say at odds with my biases, but just I have to, everything now I read, everything I do, I have to say, okay, remember, Evan, you're biased about this, and take that into consideration when you're reading about this or trying to understand that. And it can be, it takes effort. It takes a lot of effort. And frankly, a lot of people are so busy with other aspects of their life, raising their family, just getting their work done, which I have to head out in a minute and do also. And believe me, I'll be totally tuning this out and be 100% immersed in my work and not thinking about any of this. That's life. That's sort of the reality of it, which is why we try to elect people to do these kinds of things for us, to make sure that we don't get ourselves into horrible places, and it does not always work. So, but that's all I'm going to say about that in politics. Someone who was asking, Lee has a question for me. Lee, I'll try again to find out what's behind me. They want to know what's behind me. At least Lee does. I think maybe someone else asked what's behind me. So I don't know exactly what you're in reference to, because there are several things behind me. I don't know if you're referring to, my lightsaber, which I always, keep within arm's reach, because you never know when a Sith Lord.
What color is it?
It is blue. Should I activate? Let's see. Oh, I have to.
Oh, you're
pure
heart.
You pull the. I don't know how well it shows up on there.
Whoa. Pretty good.
Sound effects and all. So let's turn that off. So there's that. This, a couple other things I have behind me. So we're doing a little show and tell before I really do have to go. I have a 7 o'clock call with a client. You know what that is? Dice Tower.
Roll it, yeah.
Oh, right.
More efficiently.
Yeah.
Randomized dice.
Right. You just take your dice, you roll, and there it is. Your roll. So very nice one I found online, and I am quite happy with. This is my pith helmet, which is my wardrobe for my other podcast, Which Game First, a board game podcast, because we are game explorers, searching out the best board games for you. And sometimes we play some horrible ones so that you don't have to, and we can tell you about that experience. So this is my pith helmet for my Which Game First podcast. That is my monitor, which you've obviously seen before. And some of the books on my bookshelf, especially Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. Yes, among many other things back there. So,
available at fine bookstores everywhere.
Lee, did that answer your question? Are you still out there? And oh yeah, keyboard. Someone's noticing a keyboard down here. I did pick that up recently, and I have not yet my intention is to eventually take piano lessons, and but I'm not going to invest in a piano. Just
Are you
yet,
a complete beginner?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm absolute neophyte, zero skill, no musical instrument experience, Frank, really, without just hitting some drums and none. So it's really a whole.
Well, your first problem is that's a guitar, so
damn,
that's unfortunate. So
damn, I'll have to return that Glockenspiel I bought as well.
Correct. Very good.
Paulo, any final thoughts, parting thoughts you want to give to everyone?
It's been very fun.
I'll give you you get the last word today.
Oh, that's very nice.
I get the last word.
The last word.
Well, I was mainly to lower the bar for solo guests because you had Dell, who was so impressive. And I think it scared off other people from volunteering to be a solo guest.
Correct.
So I thought it would be my responsibility I'll take one for the team, going, this is the new bar, so don't worry, it's fine. Totally fine. There's a message to the Discord people. It's totally fine. Volunteer to guest. It's fun.
You're a good man because you always have other people's, in mind. You're always thinking about the other person, and that is that is a good quality in an individual.
I'll take that.
I take my pith helmet. I tip my pith helmet to you.
Thank you.
Don't be pithy.
All right. Well, 2 weeks from now, I'll hopefully be able to do this again, unless I'm too bogged down in tax season. I may have to miss a couple of these going forward, and then come end of April, I'll be back into our normal schedule. And I hope to see a lot of you there in New York next weekend, or Boston. And Paulo, when we're back in Edinburgh, we'll definitely see you.
Yeah, definitely.
And Ian, I'll see you next week. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Guys. We'll toggle you off one at a time. Bye-bye. Paulo gets the last full screen image. There you go. Bye-bye. And bye-bye, everyone.